that's what being okay is to me, and more than okay. And the idea of the spectrum that I talk about, like less than okay, okay, and more than okay. My hope is that makes it easier for people to talk about mental health. That it's okay to be less than okay. It's okay to just be okay, and it's also okay to be more than okay.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Jaxon Talks. Everybody, I'm really excited for today's guest. I think we're very like-minded. You may have saw our Instagram live that I did through her Instagram, which is called the OK Days, which is how we got connected. But now we're going to have a really in-depth conversation here about her journey, how she got here, why mental health is important. You know, kind of the normal things that we talk about on this podcast. But I introduced to you today, Ed and Marcus.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, where are you coming from?
I am tuning in from Boston. I have been home with my fam since this all started in March. Yeah.
What were you doing before that? Were you somewhere else?
I was in New York. So I went to college at Boston University, moved to New York right after graduation, and I was there for about 2 years before this all started, and I've been back home since then.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll dive into a little bit more about that and what you did in school and all that good stuff. But generally, we start this podcast off with a very, I think, important question that I think can really change the world. Even though people say that a lot, you know, I want to change the world, this will change the world. But I think it can kind of has the impact too. And so I'd like for you to really answer this question as honestly as possible. How are you doing for real?
Ooh, so good. Oh, no, I'm not doing so good. That's a great question, though.
Okay.
I know. I am doing, and this has been my answer, and it's very connected to what I do on Instagram, but I am doing okay. And I that is my honest answer. I meant your question was so good, but I am doing okay. I love that you asked me to answer that honestly, because I think this year that's a heavy question. It can be a heavy question because I think our gut reaction is, oh, I'm doing so good, or I'm doing good, or I'm doing well. And sometimes we are, but when we answer that, when we're not, yeah, there's so much more. There's a deeper layer to that. So I'm really glad you asked me to answer that honestly. How are you doing?
How am I doing? I'm doing very well. Last night I had a friend come over that I hadn't seen in 10 years.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was like a really magical kind of experience. Like she was friends with my sister, which my viewers know. And I think you remember that, you know, I lost her a couple years ago. And so we were all part of this like Jewish youth group back in the day. And she like moved to Israel and like is about to become a rabbi and is like super into yoga and like went on like a bunch of meditation and mindfulness retreats. So like, it's weird how like, you know, over 10 years, we've like gone on way different journeys and experienced so many different things, but like have almost led up to like the same kind of thought process. And so the conversation we had last night was really cool, and just like seeing someone you hadn't seen in forever is very nice. And
oh my god,
yeah. So because of that conversation and that, I'm doing really good, and it's, you know, I feel good to do that. So I'm doing really good.
After those kind of conversations with friends and connections, I always feel my best. I actually saw a friend this morning. We got breakfast, and that made me feel more than okay. It made me feel very good. We had gone to kindergarten through 8th grade together. Hadn't seen her since then. Like, we went to different high schools, different colleges, but we have reconnected since we both have similar stories. I was in New York, she was in Atlanta. We both moved back in with our families in the Boston area, and we reconnected this year. And every month or so, we'll do like a socially distant activity, and that always makes me feel good. So I love coming out of those conversations feeling better.
Yeah, it's something. There's something to it, obviously. That's why so many people talk about, needing real, genuine human connection, whether like via text, phone call, or in person nowadays. But it does. It's
Definitely.
like it's an absolute game changer. And so, how has like connection and staying in touch with people been for you since being at home and coronavirus and restrictions and things of that nature?
It has been so needed. I was not a phone call person before this. I was always a let's text a little, catch up, but then let's just meet up in person and really have a conversation. That changed this year. Now I love calling my friends and I love having those FaceTime connections because it's so important. I think this year made us realize that we are not meant to not interact with people for this long. So I think it's been so needed for me for sure.
Yeah, I have an Android cell phone, so FaceTime for me is challenging, and I get grief from all of my friends about it. Like, dude, I got to get on Instagram to see you, or what? Okay.
So like you have green text. You don't have the blue text like
phone, right? Yeah. I know. So I'm like, out of everything that's going on, what's giving you issue is you getting on Instagram so we can have a FaceTime.
Yeah. So true.
But okay, so I'd like to really kind of explore you and your background and like why you started the OK Days. So you grew up where? Where'd you grow up?
So I was actually born in Israel. My dad's side of the family is there, and my mom is American. So my parents met in New York, and then after they got married, they moved to Israel and back to Israel rather, because that's where my dad's from. And then they had me, and then we moved back here, and they had my brother. So I grew up in the Boston area, but I do have an Israeli passport. So we got both, but I grew up in America.
That's super cool.
That's kind of like where I grew up, and I went to like a private Jewish day school, the kindergarten through 8th grade that I was talking about. And I think that really shaped my like love of community and desire for connection. And I then went to public high school, and that was a really new experience because I had been with the same people for 9 years until I was 14, however old you start high school. And again, I was like, that taught me how much I value community. And I go that far back to how I started the OK Days because I think it really connects. It connects to my desire to connect with people and to talk about mental health and create that kind of community. But the OK Days started 2 years ago, and it started as an Instagram account about yoga because I am a yoga teacher and I wanted to, start a kind of platform like that. But it developed into more a mental health blog, a mental health platform at the beginning of quarantine, actually, when I discovered things about my own mental health. And I was like, I can't be the only one experiencing this. And when I start to share more and more and develop the OK Days into more about okayness, it really grew from there.
That's awesome. Okay. And so what year did you graduate high school in Brooklyn?
I graduated high school in 2014.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you went to what college?
Boston University. So I stayed local and I studied journalism there. And then I graduated in 2018.
Awesome. And then you found a job, or you didn't find a job? You traveled? What'd you do?
Found a job, very much like wanted to get myself to New York and couldn't go to New York without a job. So I found a semi-journalism related job, which was a great launching off point to get me there. But I was only at that job for about 9 months because around that time, I discovered that I was not meant to sit at a desk for 8 hours a day, that I needed to be in a field that allowed me to interact with people and make eye contact and have conversations. So I decided to pursue yoga full time. I'd been teaching yoga on the side for about a year at that point. And I was like, let me give this a try. And that was a big leap for me, but it led me to where I am today. I taught yoga full time. I worked my way up in studio management and studio leadership. I opened a yoga studio in New York, and then COVID happened, and COVID changed what fitness looks like, and it had me reevaluate a lot of things, like for so many people.
Wow. Yeah. Yoga is an incredible practice. How did you get involved with that? Like what made you want to start doing yoga, and how has it changed you as a person?
I first found it at the beginning of college. I never grew up playing sports. I was actually like very bad at sports growing up, and it always made me feel like, what? Like, why can't I be good at sports? And then I found yoga. Actually, a funny story. I was on the track team in high school for maybe a month, and then I specifically remember tripping on purpose and like sprained my ankle because I did not want to be. Not a runner. But anyways, I discovered yoga in college, and it was that mind-body connection that made me fall in love with it. And once I discovered that I can get a great like physical workout and then feel better mentally, I was hooked. I haven't done any, like I like to bike now, but yoga is my form of exercise, and I haven't gone back since then.
It's incredible. I started doing yoga when I was in college, strictly for the idea to try to recover better, because I played baseball in college. Yeah. And so they had like this rec center as part of the university, and they put on a few yoga classes like every morning. So I started going, and the class was filled with probably women 60 and over. and they're doing these things with their body, and I'm over here like barely being able to touch my toes, but like, and they're like looking at me struggle and like giving me some like sense of encouragement. And then, by the end of my senior year, I was able to do the splits, which I feel like is a pretty good. It's pretty cool. But I've kind of lost some of that yoga-ness. But it's practice. Yeah. I mean, just like anything else, right? If you kind of stop doing it, you kind of lose it. So is it something you do every single day, or like what's your routine?
Yeah, so after I found it, and I practiced it all the time, and that's towards the end of college, I got certified in teaching it, because I was like, wow, if I want to give others what yoga has given to me, I practice at least 5 times a week. That's like my goal. And it's especially during quarantine, so many things we've learned. Like I learned that I actually do like talking on the phone. And even though I thought I didn't like it, I used to think I couldn't work out at home. I was like, I have to be in a studio. I need the heat. I need the students next to me. And it was hard, especially in like March, April. I really missed it. But now I've like created my own space at home, and, I'll wear extra layers to create my own heat. And I have figured out a routine here, and I feel very grateful for yoga during this year, especially.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who maybe is, thinking about starting a yoga routine? They've never been an athlete. They're not used to exercise. But they've read some stuff here and there throughout quarantine about, mindfulness and being self-aware, and it's kind of led them down this like a yoga path. What would you say to that person to try to encourage them to maybe give it a try?
I love that question. I would say to them to commit to try a little every day, and to explore the different options. There are so many different kinds of yoga. So explore what works for you. I'm trained in power vinyasa. So that's like a powerful flow where we move breath to movement. But there's different kinds of restorative yoga. There's yoga sculpt, which I love as well, and that's yoga with weights. There's yoga where you hold one pose for 20 minutes. There's yoga where you hold one pose for 2 minutes. I would say commit to a little bit every day, because I think it takes 21 days to build a habit. So once you get into that routine, you'll start to really crave it, I think. And to, explore what works for you, because there's a lot of different yoga out there.
Yeah. Because I know you have a newsletter with the OK days, and you do like some guided meditation stuff on there. Is there do you offer like yoga practices or yoga tips, or is that not something that you're?
Yeah, so it used to be more yoga based when I started this platform, but now it's really moved into more like mental health and conversations and connection. I've been offering some meditations. I took a little pause on that once I started a new job that I started about a month ago. But I'm actually getting certified in meditation in January. So once I get that going, I'm going to continue to offer that.
Well, congrats on the new job, whatever that is. Hopefully it's something that you like.
I love it. I do.
Good.
I just started at a new yoga company. So I was at a different yoga company in New York, and now that I'm back and staying in Boston, I'm at Down Under School of Yoga, which is this really awesome Boston-based yoga company, and their mission is to create a home for students using this practice. And I just joined them as a teacher and as well as their outreach director. So I get to support students and create community events. It's been really awesome so far.
Sounds perfect for you from what I know so far.
Thank you.
Okay, so then, so you got deep into yoga. You started the OK Days about 2 years ago, but it's really during quarantine, it's really transformed into a mental health platform. And so we'll talk about exactly what you do with it, but I want to have you kind of define what being okay or more than okay means to you.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day, like, what an okay day is for me, since it's called the OK Days. And for me, okayness is being aware. Like, I think when I'm okay, I'm aware of what I'm doing. So I'm not just like running through life. And being in New York, I was like all over the place, and literally and mentally, I guess too. I just wasn't paying attention to anything. And this year, for so many of us, we've had to slow down. We've had to sit with a lot of uncomfortable things. And okayness to me is being aware of how you're feeling, maybe what triggers you, and how you can support if you get upset about something or if you feel a little off. And yeah, that's what being okay is to me, and more than okay. And the idea of this spectrum that I talk about, like less than okay, okay, and more than okay. My hope is that makes it easier for people to talk about mental health. That it's okay to be less than okay. It's okay to just be okay. And it's also okay to be more than okay. Now I've said the word okay a lot in one sentence, but definitely it's kind of the spectrum that I hope helps people be able to talk about mental health a little easier.
Yes, definitely. Because I think what's happening a lot right now is that we have we judge ourselves a lot, but we're judging ourselves like based on other people's pain, right? We're saying, because I think a lot of people, there's a spectrum, like you talked about, of everything. Some people have had a great 8 months. Like I just went to this cabin in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, where it's like this nature reserve. They have a few cabins, and their sales are up 126%.
Oh my God.
Right. So for them personally, they're not happy that people are dying, right? They're not happy that there's a virus, right? That aside, but they're having the best financial year of their lives.
Wow.
Right. And so if I were to talk to them, I guarantee you they'd be like feeling a little guilty about it, right? Because other people are deeply suffering. And so so people think there's like this like threshold of pain. I have to be in this certain amount of pain to ask for help. And so, what do you say to those people? It's like, because no one ever tells you, like, if I say I'm having a happy day, like I'm having a great day, I'm more than okay today, right? No one will ever tell you, well, John over there is happier than you. No one's ever going to say that. But if I say I'm having a bad day, everyone is telling me that Fred is having a worse day than me. But it's all on the same scale because there's no threshold. There's like a hierarchy of like pain and whatever. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on it.
Oh, I do. I saw a quote, and the quote was, "You don't have to be at your lowest to ask for help." And I loved that because I first found like therapy and talking to a therapist, not when I was at my lowest, at a point where I was just like a little confused. It was like my first year in New York. I just graduated college. I didn't understand how to like make friends when you're not in college anymore and in a new big city. It was not when I first found therapy, I was not at my lowest. I was confused and something felt off, but I think it's so important to remember that you don't have to be at your lowest to ask for help. And therapy is also just a place to like talk to someone who is not your friend and not your parent. So they just are like this objective person who can just listen and be like a place for you to put things, like emotional things. And yeah, that's my first thought, is that like that quote really helps me, that you don't have to be at your lowest to ask for help. And I think a lot of people think that they do, that they're like, ooh, I feel anxious this year, or I'm worried about what's going to happen, but I still have my job, and a lot of people are losing their job, so I'm fine. I don't need to talk about it. And that's not good. Like we gotta start having people talk when they're okay, and then when they're less than okay. We gotta get people talking now. And yeah, I think that is how we help reduce the stigma around mental health, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What was there like someone in your life or something you saw maybe on social that you thought to go see a therapist, or was that like your own inclination? Because usually it takes a little bit more than that to go see a therapist, right?
Definitely.
So yeah, because generally, like you said, we're going to a therapist when we're in crisis, like you know, like because I mean that's just. I wish it wasn't that way, right? Everyone needs a safe space,
I know.
a vacuum of, in a sense, to just have conversation. Like that's not with people who know you and see you every day. Just hear my thoughts. No one's going to judge you.
Definitely.
I might give you some tools, some tips, some resources on how to manage it and cope with it better. But anyways, going to see a therapist is cool and it's awesome. If you do it, you should. If you don't, you should try it anyways. But what led you to that?
So actually, I was pretty resistant at first. So this was like maybe 2.5 years ago now. I remember I was again confused and lost, figuratively and literally, in New York. And my roommate was like, "Oh, what if you tried talking to a therapist?" I was like, "No." Like I remember thinking, I don't feel that bad. That's I remember was my first thought. I don't feel that bad. It was a journey, and I first actually found meditation then. So it was like, let me try like meditating. Maybe that'll be my form of therapy. And it was wonderful. And I found such a great meditation community and company in New York. And that had been my therapy for a good amount of time. But then I was like, meditation's great, but no one's like talking back at me. Like it's not like a two-way conversation. And after my roommate talked to me about it, meditation was helpful, but something was still missing. That was the final push to talk to someone. But yeah, it was not instant. Now that I'm thinking back to it, it was not instant at all.
Yeah, because you needed that little push. But you said it right off the jump, right? I didn't feel that bad, so I didn't need to see.
Still not bad.
I was feeling fine, ish, fine-ish.
Exactly, fine-ish. And I remember also when I stopped talking to this particular therapist, I was feeling better. I was like, yeah, like I feel so much better. Like I'm in my groove in New York. Which also, it's great to talk to a therapist even when you're in your groove and you're feeling better, because this kind of work is like a lifelong commitment, for sure. But I remember I stopped talking to her. Life was going on. And then again, COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I was like, oh yeah, I want to talk to a therapist again. But I think that first find of one, that first time that I thought about it, I was hesitant for a little. After that, when I said, hey, this year I think I need to talk to one again, that was easier because I had already experienced it and I had missed it for sure.
Yeah. How difficult was it for you to start meditating? Because for me, when I started, just sitting in my room alone with my thoughts for 30 seconds was like, okay.
Oh my God.
I was like, there's a lot happening here. And then 1 minute passes and you get to 2 minutes, you get to 4 minutes, you get to 5 minutes, and like, and then you reach kind of this state of, I don't know what, whatever, euphoria or whatever you want to call it. And it feels like pretty incredible. But then the thing is, you try to bring that thing back. But in meditation, they really tell you just to kind of let it be and let it flow. So you're not trying to bring it. It's very hard because you want to feel that always. But how hard was it for you to start meditating and just like being alone with your thoughts for even a brief moment?
Yeah. very hard. It was like yoga. It was like a practice that I had to build and develop like anything else. And at first I thought it was actually impossible because I am a very energetic person. I'm always on the go. And I was like, someone's asked me to sit still and just like breathe. That was really hard for me. Once I got over the like, ooh, this is painful, and I realized that it helps me slow down, that's when I started to really, really fall in love with it. That I got to like spend some time and go inward. I had already like had my like yoga practice had been developed by then. I was like, oh, this is like yoga, but I'm not moving my body. I'm just sitting and I'm in stillness. But I loved the connection between the two. So eventually it started to come a little more naturally to me just because of my yoga background, but it did not happen overnight for sure.
Yeah, you were a little more in tune with your body and your mind at that point because of yoga. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's a good recommendation for anyone that's listening. Like if you're trying to get into meditation, maybe start with yoga because it allows for a little bit of movement of the body, which helps you kind of ease what's going on in your mind. And there's obviously physical and mental benefits that all are interlinked and connected.
Exactly.
So that's important too.
And that's the thing about meditation too. It's, it's not supposed to be easy. You're like sitting there I meditate every day for at least 10 minutes on a good day. If I have more time, I'll like go a little higher. But it really just, I see it like rippling into the rest of like my day and into my life too. Like if I'm stressed out at work, like I'll take my 3 deep breaths and like come back to it. But it's not supposed to be easy, but it's just a mirror of like life too, that in life we got to sit with uncomfortable things, and in meditation you're literally sitting with maybe some discomfort, and you're retraining your brain. You're retraining your brain to sit with the silence, to sit with the stillness. And my meditations are not like perfect, smooth sailing. My mind doesn't wander at all. But that's when you come to terms with the fact that meditation is not going to be perfect all the time, you're meditating, because you have to bring your brain back to your breath, and that is meditating.
Yeah. You said it, I mean, brilliantly, right? In life, we have to sit with uncomfortable things. And so in that same regard, how important do you think pain is as a like a mover of people to grow and change? Do you think it's the only kind of thing that'll move someone to change? Or I mean, yeah. So we can go on that for a bit.
That's a good question. I think a lot about if COVID didn't happen, if 2020 was just another year, I would not have moved back to Boston. I would have stayed in New York. I would have stayed at the company I was at, and I might have never left it. And I actually am also like, I'm looking now into grad school opportunities for 2021. If this hadn't happened, probably wouldn't have taken the leap into grad school. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I think a lot about how the pain of this year has like forced me to grow, and not just me, so many of us. It's forced us to grow, and I have also like always defined myself as a positive person. Like I've defined myself as that, and people who meet me are like, "Oh, you're just so positive." So it's been a thing for a while until this year when I was like, "What the hell does it mean to be positive when there's so much bad stuff that keeps happening?" So this year I've like redefined myself as a resilient person rather than a positive person, because resiliency is, seeing the good in the bad, but also acknowledging the bad and growing from it and bouncing back. And I can say it's December 4th, we're entering 2021 soon, and I'm bouncing back for sure.
Yes, I mean, this episode will come out. This will be the first episode that I drop in 2021.
Oh, great.
So,
Happy New Year.
Yes, so it'll be perfect. People will hear this. They'll be hopping on those New Year's resolutions. They'll be crushing it, just getting after it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, for me personally in my life, like pain and like tragic event was like the whole reason for everything. And so like my big message is like, let's not wait for that to happen. Let's not wait for you to get in a car accident and to like see your life flash before your eyes before you realize what's important. Let's not wait for my father to die of cancer before I tell my parents I love him. Let's not wait for a global pandemic to start taking care of our mental, But I mean, and then in the same regard, I feel like a hypocrite for saying that, right? Because I didn't change until I lost, someone I loved. And so does it really hold any weight when I say that? Does it have any and so there's a lot of things that I contemplate, in this kind of situation where I'm like, I feel like I'm telling people what to do when that's not the case. Like, I'm just like, this is what I know and I'm in it and I'm feeling it. I don't want you to feel this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then in the same sentence, pain and loss and grief is inevitable. Like, it's going to happen no matter how prepared you are for it or not. And it's very unexpected in times. And so really it's just like, it's like basically kind of just trying to develop a toolkit, so if you, that's a good question. It's funny because you sent me all the questions you were going to ask me for our Instagram chat. And, I don't have questions prepared because I just like knew this conversation was going to run its course and be really good.
I love it. Yeah.
And so I'm pretty good with going with the flow and coming up with questions for the conversation.
I actually realized that before I logged on, I was like, oh my God, wait, he didn't send me any questions. But we're doing great, so it's definitely just flowing along.
Yeah, I'll never ask you anything that you don't know. I mean, you know a lot about mental health, and you know yourself. So, right? That's all you need to know.
That is true. And studying journalism, like, I like to think I do not use it directly right now because I am not a journalist. But I love the fact that I have a degree in it and that I studied it because I see myself using it every day in different unique ways, like having a conversation and knowing how to ask questions.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's what you're doing now. You're having very profound conversations. But if you were trying to help someone develop a mental health toolkit, what would you try to put in that box? For the eventual preparedness for a crisis that comes their way. Like, I was thinking about this too, and I didn't come up with a super concrete answer, but maybe we can hit back and forth with some ideas.
Yeah, a toolkit. I think that I would start by asking this person to ask themselves questions first. Like, what makes them feel good? Is it moving your body or is it stillness? Is it a little bit of both? Because I would what makes you feel good? And for me, in my toolkit, I have yoga, I have meditation, I have this is actually a new one this year, is reading a very good novel, a novel that allows you to just get lost in that story. And I actually saw this study that showed that readers and people who read books, it doesn't cure loneliness, but if you're feeling lonely and you read a good book, it can really help those feelings. And I loved that. So I have reading a good book in my toolkit. And how I even came up with this toolkit was just figuring out what feels good and being aware of when I feel okay. I feel okay when I'm taking a walk outside. When I don't feel good, I'm going to take a walk outside. And where are you actually tuning in from? Are you in Texas? Did I see that on Instagram?
Yeah, I live in Dallas.
Okay, see, this is different because is it nice weather in Dallas all year round, or did I make that up?
Yeah, for the most part, we'll hit maybe low 30s, 40s at night sometimes, but most of the time, no. It's very nice.
And the reason I ask is, so I'm in Boston and I'm nervous for this winter because I love to walk and I'm not trying to walk when it's snowing outside. But anyways, getting outside, moving my body, that feels good. So yeah, just ask yourself questions of when you feel your best. One of my best friends, her name is Tiffany. I always feel better after I talk to her. She's in my toolkit, give her a call. So yeah, definitely just ask yourself, when do you feel okay? And that's your toolkit.
That's perfect. So cause no, it's so important to know, it's not only important to know what works for you, but it's super important to know what doesn't work.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because like there's so much good information on social media, but it's very general. It's very general
Oh
and
yeah.
for like mass people. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you do hit a crisis and you don't have like a toolkit prepared and you see all these general things on social
Mm-hmm.
and half of them don't work for you, you're gonna feel even worse than you did before because you're gonna feel discouraged
Mm-hmm.
that the shit that you saw
Yeah.
on social was crap and didn't fucking work for
Yeah.
you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah,
so
100%.
so just like you said, like being aware and knowing
Mm-hmm.
just like in advance, like a little bit of what kind of you like and what makes you feel good, you know?
100%.
Because we
Definitely. And
do we do it.
yeah.
Go ahead. No, you're up. It's you. You're up.
Because if you're doing things that you just see on Instagram that are working for other people and it doesn't work for you, you're like, well, why is it working for them and it's not working for me? And like, I'm a big like promoter of yoga and meditation, but I'm also well aware that that is not for everyone. There are other ways to move your body and there's other ways to feel good. That's what works for me. But that was from like figuring it out, that sports was not for me, but yoga is. It's a personal journey, and sadly, no one will tell you what works for you except for you. I think coming to terms with the fact that like you have to figure out things for yourself, and you have your friends and you have your family, people that love you, but at the end of the day, it's your life, and what choices are you going to make?
You're 100% right. You know, we like if we go to see a movie, right? At the end of the movie, we always critique that movie. Do we like it? What we didn't like about it? Why don't we do that with like our relationships or you know, the things that we do or what makes us happy? Like, you know, why aren't we asking ourselves those questions to kind of get to know ourselves a little bit better? You know, because sometimes it can be very daunting. Sometimes we put on like this mask for so long that we don't really know, you know, what we do or don't like, and so we got to kind of peel those layers back. And
Definitely,
it all takes time. Like all of this stuff is effort and time, and it's really hard. And no, even the people you see on Instagram with 700 million followers who talk about gratitude every day, they don't have every practice down perfectly. You know, the human experience is very troubling and hard, and no one's doing it perfectly. And that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it perfect, because no one is doing it perfectly.
Exactly. That's interesting you say that about Instagram. I mean, we both have platforms on Instagram, and I find Instagram hard. Like when I first created this account, when it was more about yoga 2 years ago, my initial like spark to creating it was like the end of 2018, and a lot of my friends were like, my New Year's resolution is to cut out Instagram. I'm off social media. I'm not doing it anymore. And I was like, oh, like I would add like, why? Like that's such a good point. Like, but like that's so sad that Instagram was causing that much pain that people were cutting it out. So I was like, what if we viewed Instagram as this powerful tool that allows you to connect with people, but it just depends on what you fill your feed with. So like, as long as you're following people that inspire you and uplift you and don't make you feel worse, and Instagram can be a very awesome tool. I would have never connected with you if there wasn't this app called Instagram, but I just am trying to be aware of who I follow and like what I fill my feed with. So I wanted to be one of the accounts that didn't make people feel bad when they go on Instagram. So that's actually how my Instagram account really, really started. And of course it grew from there.
Super cool. Yeah, no, your account is great. And it's nice to see it on a feed, right? But you touched on something that's really important. Like, we have full control over what we consume on social media. Well, not full control. Like, I would say like 80%, right?
Yeah.
We follow who we want. Sometimes the platform, the app. I was gonna say app and platform at the same time. Anyways, the platform will put stuff on there like ads and stuff and random things that we don't want to see. But that's just part of the deal. But for the most part, we control what we consume, and I think that's important.
Exactly.
What kind of What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say unfollow people. Like take the power and don't feel bad about it. Unfollow people and fill your feed with who you want. There's no shame in that.
For sure. Yeah, we talk about creating boundaries in real life. You can create boundaries on social media as well.
Definitely.
Is there some accounts on Instagram that you really like that you'd recommend people to follow?
Ooh, oh my gosh. So I try to be very aware of this time I spend on Instagram, especially having like a brand and a blog. I really try to not be on it for 8 hours a day. But I have just the accounts that I love are actually these accounts that my friends have started during the pandemic to promote what they're doing and sharing, and seeing everyone do things this year has been like the best part of this year. And that's kind of why I started my segment More Than Okay Moments that I interviewed you for, because in March I was like, wow, people are using this time to like chase passion and do really awesome things. So like I saw this guy who went to college with me. He started a clothing brand to talk about mental health. And I was like, that's awesome. Yeah. It's called Basic Emotion. I have their hat. It's hanging up in my closet. I have different friends who started Instagram accounts to talk about starting their own yoga business. And that has been super inspiring to watch and like cheer them on. So right now I'm not even thinking of specific Instagram accounts off the top of my head, but it's just been so cool to see people do what they love, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, hold that thought. I need to take my sweatshirt off.
It is. I'm getting hot too.
Okay, we're back with my sweet camo shirt.
We're back.
I can't decide if I want to do a line of camo tees, because I call my house everybody's land. Because my catchphrase as a pro wrestler is Jaxon Stone everybody. That's why this podcast is called Jaxon Talks Everybody.
Oh, okay.
And then I got a clothing brand called For Everybody. So I'm just trying to brand the idea of everybody, right? It's the whole part of that. Yeah, it's part of the idea of just connection and community and all that stuff. But I've never been a camo guy, but I kind of think that's cool,
Yeah, very cool. Yeah.
I live in Texas, so I guess I got to kind of represent that idea of hunting. Yeah. But it's never been my vibe. Like I don't like guns at all. The guns are scary and they scare me, and I don't really like hunting. But anyways, super off topic. You never been?
I've never been. No, all I know about Texas is that show about football players. Oh my God, I don't know. Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
Is that Texas?
Yeah, it's a very small town in Texas called Odessa.
That's what I think of. That is the extent of my knowledge. Have you ever been to Boston?
Yeah, many times.
It's a good one.
Yeah, I lived in Philadelphia for 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I wrestled in Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island, like a bunch of times. And then I dated a girl a while ago that lived in Boston too. So
it's a good city.
It's a very cool city, very fun city.
Very fun.
Let's bring it like what we talked before I took off my sweatshirt and talked about camo. Oh, your friends on Instagram.
My friends on Instagram.
No, that's mad inspiring. I feel the same way. Like you just see so many, especially like young people, and I say young like under 30. I think is young. Yeah. I think really age is only a number. I think everyone's young if you feel that mind frame.
I agree. I've always been the youngest. Like my parents. Okay, I blame my parents. My parents put me in kindergarten at 4 instead of 5. But really, my birthday is in October, so I literally turned 5 a month after in kindergarten. But ever since then, I started high school at 13 instead of 14. I started college at 17 instead of 18. So like I've always been younger. I think it's the hardest was like when everyone was getting their license and I couldn't drive, and then everyone could drink alcohol legally and I couldn't drink alcohol legally. Those are the 2 ages. But now I'm 24 and I'm still like, I've always been the youngest at work since I've entered like the career field. I've always been the youngest at work, and age is just a number. It's how you present yourself. It's how you carry yourself. I don't think like maturity and age always go hand in hand. Like I've always considered myself very mature for my age. But yeah, it's how you present yourself. It's how you carry yourself. For sure.
Absolutely.
I don't know how we got on the topic of age, but.
Well, yeah, just because I talked about young people, how inspiring young people can be. And I don't, like I don't want to put like an age bracket around what I consider a young person.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
definitely.
because there's like these two young kids who are in high school who created this app called the Not Okay app.
Oh my God. Okay.
And
And what they
basically
do?
it's an app, and you press a button, and it's like a crisis app. So boom, it connects you to someone right away. And
Oh my God.
these two young kids, I don't know where they're from, but they're brilliant, obviously. Yeah, so
Wow.
check it out. It's really cool.
Oh
They
yeah,
won
no.
they won a few awards for like mental health apps and stuff. But yeah.
Oh my God. That's really awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, people are inspiring, and like I feel like the younger
Yeah.
generation like we want to see change, whether it's like in mental health or with like
Yeah.
inequality or like all these
Yeah.
things that are happening right now with like being more diverse and inclusive, and
Yeah.
all these things that are super important,
Hmm.
that we're just like introducing to the older generation to try to get them to understand
Yeah.
and be a little more empathetic to like people who feel a different way, who want to be use these pronouns or this, or want to be considered this gender,
Yeah.
or want to be
Yeah.
non-binary. It's
Hmm.
just it's challenging, right? To change what you
Hmm.
used to see. Like if you see someone, it's hard to like describe them in a different way than the way they feel inside. But as long as you're
Hmm.
trying, I think that's all that matters.
100%. You know what I love too is how young people are starting to talk about mental health now. Like I have a cousin who's 12 and he is meditating. And I'm like, if I meditated at 12, that's amazing. Yeah, let's start them young because then like there it'll be like all this is normal. Like we just gotta normalize it, and we start them young talking to a therapist or talking about their feelings. And I read this like what was it? I read maybe an Instagram post or a newsletter that I've subscribed to about how from a young age, like when we are babies, we are like taught not to cry. Like babies, when you cry, you like what is it? Cradle them, you give them a bottle. Like I was like blown away by that. And then you're an adult and you feel upset and you're like, it's like the world is telling you to just be okay. And that's just kind of how it started from when we were infants. But if we can get young people, like younger than me and you too, just like talking and meditating and supporting their mental health, I feel good about the future. For sure.
Yeah, yeah, you're 100% right. I'm pretty optimistic about the future. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you said something interesting earlier that I want to kind of bring back about being
Yeah.
a positive person.
Oh yeah.
Um, so do people, since people consider you a positive person, before you kind of reframe that into being more resilient, optimistic, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
two words that are really important.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people that are considered positive, like people see
Mm-hmm.
them as like nothing ever bad happens to them,
Yeah.
right? Did you ever feel that way, or like would that
Mm.
kind of like pushed upon you as like people like, oh, probably never has a bad day, she's always positive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that I was happy all the time. That like if something bad happened, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Like I'm learning from this and I'm growing. Or like people really just thought I was happy all the time. I think I also don't want like that's how I felt that people viewed me, that they thought I was happy all the time. But yeah, and the term toxic positivity has been thrown around a lot this year. I think this idea that like bad stuff is happening and you're like ignoring it. And I have never felt that I'm so positive that I'm ignoring bad things that are going on. But yeah, I definitely, I think people think positive people never get upset. And that is so not true.
Right, yeah, everyone does. Everyone has bad
Human.
days, good days,
Mm-hmm.
okay days,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
um but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm like fully into like the toxic positivity thing. Like I obviously I
Mm-hmm.
understand it and I get it, and it makes
Yeah.
total sense. But there's generally not enough kindness or positivity in general. And so
Good point.
how are we gonna put this like really bad word in front of something that we need a little bit more
Yeah.
of? I don't know.
Ooh.
I contemplated a lot because I get it. Like we need to feel the bad days. We need to feel them. Like we need to feel them
Yeah.
all. Like the bad days are just
Mm-hmm.
important. We got to lean into that
Yeah.
uncomfortability. We got to lean into
Mm-hmm.
that to allow for the good to come out of it. but then it's like, I don't know. So I have a, I think about it a lot. I just, stuff that
like
goes through
that.
my head.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
like that. And yeah, it's just how do you come out of bad situations on the other side? I've had many moments this year where I'm like, oh, can't wait to just think back to 2020 and be like, oh, that's why all that shit had to happen. Or like, oh yeah, like look how far I've grown. So I think about that a lot. I'm like, I can't wait till this year makes sense. And
Hmm.
it's just how do we become resilient? And COVID is hard and it's bad, and that's just part of life. It's unfortunate that it's like it has a name to it. It's a virus. It's a global pandemic. But this is such a part of life. Life is not going to be perfect, unfortunately.
It's not. It's not. It definitely will not be. Um,
No.
so let's dive into a little bit more about some of these conversations that you've been having.
Mm-hmm.
And for me personally, in my head, conversations really are the key to everything.
Mm.
Like they're the key
Yeah.
to not understanding each other. They're the key to
Mm-hmm.
racial injustice. They're the key to understanding people and where they come from. And the conversations aren't supposed to be easy, and they're not supposed to be comfortable, right?
Yeah.
So talk about
True.
like why you wanted to start just having conversations with people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So great question. That is my goal. Like that is like the mission of the OK Days is to change the way we talk about mental health. I'm like a big believer that to remove this stigma around talking about mental health is making it easier to talk about, to get people sharing, and people like me and you who share stories personal, like on this, like a platform like Instagram. I had this conversation, another More Than Okay Moments guest, and he's this LA based musician and he's making music dedicated to a friend that he lost, and dedicated to his own mental health journey. And I asked him, what's like one piece of advice you would give for someone who's struggling to talk about mental health? And his what he said really stuck with me. And he said to remember that it's not easy. That like you see people who are sharing, and you might think, oh wow, like Aaron can like talk about it so easily, or like Eden can talk about it so easily. I wish I could do that. But if you remember that it takes effort and courage and vulnerability and bravery to do it, I think that's kind of how we can remove the stigma around mental health. And I really just think vulnerability multiplies vulnerability. So if I'm sharing, hopefully someone will feel comfortable to share back with me. So that's why I wanted to start this whole like chain and series of conversations, because that's where it starts, I think.
You're so right. You're so right. How easy or hard has it been to like find guests? Like,
Mm,
so for me, like, because
yeah.
like our platforms, just to be honest, we're not huge platforms, right? We try our best,
Yeah.
right? Hopefully they're
Mm-hmm.
going to grow in a natural, organic way. But
Yeah.
if they don't, whatever, because people view your stuff and they view my stuff. And I know that at least one person who's going to listen to this conversation between us, at least one is going to be inspired and feel more connected and loved. And that's all there is to it. Who cares? Everything else doesn't matter. But in the same vein, it's kind of hard to get like cool, interesting, insightful guests because a lot of people kind of get a lot of DMs and things of that nature. So
Mm.
what's kind of been your process of like trying to find a guest who suits
Yeah.
the mission you have?
Yeah. So it started with some friends. So at the beginning, my first guest was one of my best friends, her boyfriend. So it was her boyfriend. He was my first guest, and he is training for an Ironman competition while raising money for mental health. And I just loved that it was like this intensely, like what you do, intensely physical competition, like physical thing, but also was talking about like what's going on up here.
Yeah.
The way I found him was we were friends. So it started like that. And then I started like paying even more attention to who I follow on Instagram. And I was like, ooh, this person's doing this awesome thing. It's actually just grown very, like my finding guests has really just grown organically, where I've had people not answer me when I've asked them to be guests, but maybe like 92% of the time people are like, yes, that is awesome. Like, I want to be a part of what you're doing. So actually, like, finding guests have found has been way easier than like gaining followers, if that makes sense. Like, I found it much easier to like, and I think that's because it's like I'm connecting with a real human being, like a real person. But yeah, it's just kind of, it started as friends and it's just grown into different people that I've just like found on Instagram. Like, I think I found your Instagram through like the somehow like a hashtag mental health advocate. Like, I think that's actually how I found your profile. And I also was like, don't be nervous to just reach out to a stranger. Like, worst thing is he says no.
Right.
So yeah, I've just been like, ripped the band-aid off and I was like, oh, if this person says no, it's not the end of the world. Just like, I can't get nervous. You just got to do it.
Yeah. Now look at us, you know.
Here we are.
Yeah, having nice conversations. No, that's good. Like, but the email that you sent out for like to get guests is like super professional. It's like very well done. And so
thank you.
Like when people read that, they're probably like, oh yeah, this is, and then like,
it's legit.
Yeah, I mean, for real though. And then you're also reaching out to people who you think are like-minded with you. So they're going to like respect and see what you say and be like, for sure. Like you know, that's what I thought at least. I was like, yeah, why would I not do this?
Exactly.
Yeah. Cause I found your profile because you were wearing, there's a company called Make Sure Your Friends Are Okay.
Love them. Shout out to them.
Yeah. And I think you were wearing one of their shirts and I was on their page and I saw it. I just liked it.
Yes.
And then you liked mine and then I think we followed each other back or whatever the case may be. But
I think that's what it was. I love that brand. The LA musician I was referring to, he is friends with the founder of that brand. And his music, he called his like album Make Sure Your Friends Are Okay.
His name is James. His name is James, isn't it? His name is James.
Yes, James Quick. Shout out to him as well.
He's awesome. I listen to his music quite a bit. Yeah, I was gonna reach out to him on Instagram too to see if he would have a combo with me because I've seen all that stuff.
You should. And you know, that was a funny moment because it was the first time I was like, this guy is not going to answer me. I think I emailed him and then his assistant answered me. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. But yeah, it wasn't even him that answered me right away. It was his assistant. His assistant coordinated it. I don't have an assistant, but that's cool.
I don't have one either. Everything is done by me. That's cool though. Yeah. I mean, I knew he was like mad cool and like super fish, but I didn't know he had an assistant.
Yeah. His assistant. And I think I gather that his assistant is one of his close like friends, but it was still really cool. And, you know, definitely invite Bob to have a conversation because what he did so well is he opened up so beautifully. Like he shared his own story. And I just really appreciate it when like people are getting as vulnerable as I'm getting like in a conversation because it just makes it 10 times better for sure.
Absolutely does for sure.
Yeah.
Has there over out of all the conversations that you've had, has there been you know, I know you talked about the thing that stuck out with you and James's conversation.
Yeah.
Has there been any other combos that have like, you know, specific things that have really stuck out in your mind as something that you'd like to share, or something that you may not have thought of, but someone brought up and now your kind of perspective has been tweaked a little bit and changed. But anything like that you want to share about some of those conversations?
I mean, you were one of my favorite guests. I loved our conversation. I mean, we had technical difficulties, but alas,
we did.
Instagram is unreliable. But besides our conversation as well, you know, the advice that James gave, that really stuck with me about like what you would say to someone who's struggling to talk about their mental health. I also talked to, have you heard of the company When the Music Stops?
Yes.
Yeah. So I interviewed the founder of that company, and we had a marvelous conversation, one of my favorite ones as well. And now that I'm like listing off the ones that I've been like, that have really stuck in my mind, it's the conversations where my guest really opens up. Like you and when like the guy from When the Music Stops and James, like y'all were the ones that really, really opened up. And now that I say it, I just listed off 3 men too. Like, and usually it's, maybe we can talk more about this as well as someone who is not a man, but I know that, you know, men's mental health, I feel very passionate about it just because I have had guy friends who have really struggled with mental health, and it's hard for us all, but the way society is that, like it, again, I don't want to speak for someone who is not a man, but like, I don't know, I'm wondering for you, do you find it harder to talk about your feelings because of the way the world is?
100%. Yeah. So like I've been in sports my whole life, right? I played at a very high level baseball. And then and now I'm a pro wrestler, right? So that's like supposed to be like a really tough job or whatever you want to call it. And so my previous professional wrestling character was like this fake movie star named Lights Camera Jackson. Yeah. And so like that was cool because I was like just pretending. So like whatever. So all the stuff I posted on social was like a bunch of pretend bullshit and like curated content. But now since I'm on this like journey of what I'm on, all of the wrestling fans who follow me see me post all the stuff that I post about, mental health and emotions and mindfulness and self-aware and all these things that are super important. And so when I first started doing that, I got loads of messages from wrestling promoters, people that were booking me saying, hey man, like, I don't know if you should be posting this stuff because, you're supposed to be like this tough wrestler and it doesn't look good.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, to be honest, I think this makes me look even more tough.
Yes. Oh my God.
And so there's definitely it's in sports. It's in sports so heavy, right? Like it's the grind, be in the trenches, like throw some dirt on it, man up, whatever those like the super icky sayings are. But being in it for so long and like being in it now still, like you can see the transition that we're making as a culture. And so you see these like high profile athletes like talking about their struggles and saying they're going to a therapist. And if we're just speaking in like an athletic performance sense, if you're not taking care of your mental, you're not going to reach elite status. And that can be said with anyone as a human being. Like elite status basically just means you're happy and you're fulfilled, and that's all that we want. And so if we're not taking care of our mental, then there's no chance of that ever happening. And so I think that's finally starting to happen in sports. I can't speak for every single male in the whole world, but I hope that, but I hope they do talk about, how they feel and ask for help when they need it and take a rest day if they can. And, because we always, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, just everyone in general, men, women alike, which like, we got to get it done. We got to do this for this person. And, but we can't be anything to anyone unless we're something to ourselves first. So.
Yes. And I love that the 3 conversations that stuck out to me were conversations that I had with men on this platform. I had a phase of wanting to go back to school to become a therapist. It has evolved into now more like I'm very passionate about the business side of mental health. We can talk about that as well. But back to this too, when I had that phase of like, oh, I could see myself becoming a therapist, I really had this like desire to like specialize in men's mental health. I felt very drawn to it. I felt very like passionate about it. And I just, again, like we tell boys to just not talk about things that suck. And, that's so not fair. Like men, women, we're all humans and we all have emotions, and men should be able to talk about this stuff just as much as it's okay for women to talk about it too.
Right. Yeah. And on the same subject, we always say that women who talk about their feelings are like too emotional. They're too much. They're too much. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, just like if you were actually listening, you're actually listening to what she said and like just like being there and like responding just a little bit more kinder with what she was trying to say, that she wouldn't be too much. She'd be saying just the right thing for you to understand what she needs. And so it's both. It's like 2 opposite sides of the spectrum, right?
True. There's stereotypes, and I've gotten too sensitive before, and I hate that because I think I am a sensitive person, and I think that's my freaking superpower. I'm a sensitive person, and that means I'm nice. Like I am nice to people, and I have definitely gotten too sensitive before, and no, thank you.
Yeah. if you're nice, be nice. If you're kind, stay kind. It matters.
Yeah.
It means something, you know? So
exactly. Can you imagine the world we would live in if everyone was just like nice to each other?
just 1% nicer, like 1%. It'd be wild.
Everything would be fine. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So you created this platform. You're having these beautiful conversations. You're diving into mental health. Where do you see this platform going? Like, where do you want to take it?
Yeah.
You know, I think about goals a lot because it's hard to.
Me too.
It's hard to like really say I want to be here in this amount of time because so many different things are going to happen. You know.
Right.
And so I think you can have an intention. It's good to have an intention of like where you want to go. And I think smaller goals are way more important than like this like far out goal that, you know, that could be not what you want in 5 years when you thought you were going to get there. But the little goals are more important. But that's a tangent. Yeah. Anyways, where do you see yourself? It doesn't have to be in 5 years. It could be next week. But where do you want to take it?
So I also really define myself as a very like passionate person. I am very committed that I will live a passionate life and I will not be bored because I love what I do and I love loving what I do. But, you know, it's just so interesting how much it's changed. Like when I was little, I wanted to be like an interior designer and then a fashion, like it has come such a long way. And then I was like, oh, I want to be a journalist. And then I was like, oh, I want to be a yoga teacher. And it's really just like grown and grown and grown. So where am I going to be in 5 years? I have a vision, but my gosh, I didn't think at 24 I'd be here. So, you know, I try to go with the punches, even though that is not my personality at all. But where I want to be with the OK Days, I am looking into a social impact MBA program. So my goal is to start a nonprofit called the OK Days and take the OK Days with me. And that nonprofit is going to, again, make it easier to talk about mental health, have these conversations, partner with different artists and creatives to create these opportunities to spark conversation. So that's the grad school I was referring to before. So I'm looking into that for 2021. And yeah, I want this to become my nonprofit.
Beautiful.
In 5 years, maybe. I don't know what the time limit is, but that's what's next.
No, technically you can start the nonprofit right now.
Today.
So, but you know, you want to have things kind of set in motion. Like obviously you have plans for that and want to make it the best it possibly can be, which is amazing.
Exactly.
Super pumped. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you this one last question and I'll let you go. Okay. How would you define mental health?
Oh my God. How would I define mental health? Mental health is looking inward and going inside. I find it extremely interesting that you never know what someone is going through. They could be fake smiling or just, you know, smiling, or you don't know. You just never know what's going on in someone's head. So mental health to me is looking inward and going deep and getting deep and seeing some good things and seeing some bad things and being okay with both.
And then what would you say to someone who's struggling right now?
That you are not as alone as you may feel. That really sticks with me when I feel alone. I've had moments where I'm like, I'm the only one going through this right now. Like, what the hell? Why is no one else going through this? And I have moments where I'm like, you have no idea what other people are going through unless you ask them and they feel comfortable to share. But that is my advice to someone who's struggling right now is, even if you feel so alone, you're not. And I hope if you're listening to me and Erin talk, like you feel inspired and connected, because we've all felt alone, I'm assuming, because I have. And we're just never as alone as we may feel, which is hard to hear sometimes when you're in it. But just keep reminding yourself that.
Yep. Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, I know we talked about a lot, your Instagram, but tell us where we can find you.
At the OK Days or theokdays.com. theokdays@gmail.com. That's my email address. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yeah, go to her website. Definitely subscribe to her newsletter. There's a lot of good stuff that she posts and sends out. Conversations happen every Thursday, right?
Thursday, but I haven't told you this yet. It is actually going to turn into a podcast in 2021. Instagram Live has failed me too many times, starting with our conversation. It happened this week too. I can't rely on it. So these conversations are moving to a podcast for January.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I wasn't gonna suggest that because that's not my place, but I think that's awesome because now people can listen to them whenever they want, and you can get a little bit deeper, and that's awesome.
Exactly.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I know everyone and their grandma is starting a podcast, but it's all good.
I know. Everyone and their grandma. That's funny. Yeah. I know. Agreed.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you, Truly, for joining me today. Taking some time out of your day to talk to me. I'm happy with this. With this conversation.
I cannot believe it's been an hour and 12 minutes.
Has it?
But it's 3:12, or I'm in Boston, so it's 2:12 for you.
Yeah. No, good. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm happy that we're getting to know each other a bit better in our relationship. I don't know if we'll ever meet in person. Might be cool. Maybe we'll have a beer.
Yeah, if you're ever in Boston, I don't know if I'll ever be in Texas, but never say never.
Never say never. Weirder things have probably happened.
True. Very, very true. It was so great to chat with you today.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Thanks for everyone for watching. You know the sign off by now. Rate, subscribe, like, comment, tell a friend. Grateful for you all for watching. Appreciate you. Have a good night or day or wherever you're listening to it. And Happy New Year. Bye. How do you stop recording? There we go.